Royal Road Minerals just secured a 30-year mining concession in Colombia called Chuscalita. It's located directly adjacent to the company's existing Guintar project. Drilling is already underway here on new ground, which the company believes extends the mineralized system from Guintar. We've invited President and CEO Tim Coughlin to discuss all of this. Tim, thank you for being here.
Hi, Rachel. My pleasure. Thanks for having me again.
Well, like mentioned, you've just got this title. What does finally having this ground under contract unlock for Royal Road?
Well, I think the obvious thing is, the most optically obvious thing at the forefront here is the ability to drill test the continuation of the porphyry that we've got 4 holes into on the Guintar license. That initially. Secondly, and perhaps more materially, at least for the company and from a strategic perspective, it means that we're back in Colombia, and we are still, I think, the largest. I'll have to check this, but I'm pretty sure we're the largest title and application holder in country by virtue of the fact that we bought AngloGold Ashanti's most of their exploration assets in 2019. So it means we're back, and the reason for that, although the catalyst might sound trivial, in fact we were waiting for that application to be granted to us as a title back in 2022, at which point the Colombian government suspended that process. So they reopened that process in March. And so we moved on, reopened that process in March, and so we're back.
Yes, and of course, a couple months ago, we talked about this very thing here, so it's cool to see this progress happening. What gives you confidence that this mineralization extends onto Chuscalita? Give us the details.
Okay, well, again, starting with the basics, on an application, before it's a title, you are permitted to conduct surface exploration, with the permissions of the surface rights owners. And so we do know from soil geochemical sampling that the surface geochemical anomaly that we have at neighboring Guintar, and actually the Niverengo title as well, which backs onto the eastern side of Chuscalita, that it extends onto there. So we had a pretty good indication from the surface. And then also fairly obviously, from the drilling around that we've conducted on Guintar around that Chuscalita title, that the holes are open at depth with a vector towards that title. So our exploration work, which included surface work and drilling, has clearly indicated that that's where we need to be.
And like mentioned, you're drilling now here on the ground. What are you testing, and when do you expect results?
We are testing, at the moment, we're actually drilling on the Guintar title. So we're testing exposed porphyry stockwork. So a stockwork is a network of veins that in our case carries gold, copper and silver. And so what we're doing is chasing them down at the moment to try and find, hopefully, where they might congeal and connect into a bigger porphyry. Certainly good indications of that. It's kind of difficult to produce the density of stockwork veining that we see on surface without having something more substantial at depth. And then, so we're currently drilling on Guintar, and then we'll be moving to Chuscalita, and they're deep holes down, pretty much straight down to where we believe the porphyry is. Best way to describe it, I guess, is we're drilling at the moment a circular or semicircular zone with porphyry just exposed in the bottom of a quebrada. And this is quite unique, actually, at least in my experience, to be able to sit literally right on top of a porphyry. So, so by that I mean meters into we can walk meters down from the hanging wall into the exposed porphyry in the bottom of the quebrada. We're right at the top. So we've got this ring where it's exposed, and the vectors in that ring are pointing down, obviously, towards the center of what the full circle would be, which will be deeper, if that makes any sense. So we'll be drilling deep into the core of the thing.
And is there an expected sort of when for these results to hit the market?
When? Yeah, so we're drilling now. It depends on the labs. So we'll be sending batches of samples off usually sort of 50 odd meter batches. We should be getting our first results in the next 3 or 4 weeks, depending on the labs.
Of course, yes. Lab timelines matter here the most.
Yeah.
Now you have an option to buy 80% for $1.12 million. When do you make that call? What determines it?
We'll make that call after the drilling. We'll have a fairly clear idea of as to what we've got, and we're not in the business of messing around. We don't have a history of doing that, so we just want to get moving. So if it looks good, we'll make that call.
Okay. Well, there's been unrest across South America lately. It feels like everyone knows this. And anyone would assume that raises risks, uncertainty. How do you see it on the ground, literally in Colombia right now as you sit in Medellin?
Okay, I assume we're talking about the abduction of Nicolas Maduro. On the ground, and you asked me, and so anecdotally on the ground here, that is it being taken very positively as a signal of positive change. So it's fair to say, I think we all know this. There's pretty much always some unrest in South America, and risks that particularly we need to manage here in Colombia. But objectively, there are about 8 million displaced Venezuelans. I think there's 2.8 million of those here in Colombia, and that itself is enough of a yardstick of discontent. Venezuela has been harboring some designated terrorist groups pretty close to the border with Colombia, in fact. And so, to be honest, this is being taken quite positively here. In terms of how it impacts us on the ground, there is no impact at this point in time. And I'd struggle to see how, given that we've operated in Colombia. I personally have been here for 25 years in and out. So we know the place, and we know the inherent sort of congenital risks that we need to manage. I really can't see that this is going to affect us in any way at this point in time.
Well, we wish you the best as you carry on and continue the story here in Colombia. Royal Road Minerals CEO Tim Coughlin joined us. We'll be watching, Tim. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Rachel. My pleasure.